Welcome back to the podcast, Schmoozers. I'm your host, David Cobby. And today we have a very, very special guest on podcast all the way from Israel. As a lone soldier, he left behind the security and safety that he had in the United States to join the IDF, fight for the Jewish country. Today, I'm very honored to have IDF reservist Drew Silberman on the podcast. Drew, Achi, how are we doing today?
Thank God. Thanks for having me, man. Cool to be on the podcast.
Thanks for coming on. All the way from Israel, right? You're in Israel right now?
Yeah, man. I'm sitting in my kitchen in Herzliya.
Yes, sir. And you having that coffee? Or you having like the American dirt water coffee? Like, what are you drinking?
Like they call it bot. It's like mud. You get like a Turkish coffee. You throw some water on top of it, just let it sink down till it like makes a little pile of mud at the bottom.
That's the best. So, Drew, I like to do this with all my guests. First thing we do on the podcast is we run through what I like to call your Jewish geography profile. So we're just going to do like a little rapid fire. So let's start with, we're going to go hometown, sleepaway camp, youth group, and then your favorite club in Israel. So let's start with your hometown. Where are you from, Drew?
I'm from Buffalo Grove, Illinois. It's like a northwest suburb of Chicago. It's a quiet place, lots of Jews. Pretty snowy.
And then sleepaway camp. Where'd you go to sleepaway camp?
I went to Ramah, Wisconsin. I think that's actually where we met. Back in the day.
Yeah. We'll get into some Ramah stories later. And then youth group, you did USY, right? How long did you do USY for?
I had all 4 years of high school. I was the Israel Affairs vice president for Chicago for Choosy. So that kind of led me to where I am today, I guess.
Awesome. And then this is the hard-hitting question that I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of toss and turn with. What is your favorite club in all of Israel?
Oh, you mean like a soccer club? What do you mean?
No. Like a bar, like a nightclub.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I guess since I'm out of the army, go clubbing, I say a lot less. But I don't know. I gotta go with like something classic, like Huli Alma, where all the American girls are. That's the place to be.
Cooley's a great place. I feel like that's the one it's like on Rothschild, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah. Cooley's a fun place. A lot of my friends, I don't know if you're on the anti-Shalvata wave, but like a lot of my friends, like I was there, I think summer of 2021 or 2022. And a lot of my friends were, going to Shalvata every night. And I was just like, guys, this is such an Americanized club. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Shalvata?
The problem with Shalvata is that it's like, if you're there doing like Birthright or like over the summer with Onward and everything, it's either like half Americans and then the other half is like Arsim. If you know, do I have to explain what Arsim are?
Yeah. Wait. Why don't before we get to the real questions, why don't we talk about Arsim? I feel like that's something that not a lot of people in I mean, American Jews don't really understand it, but unless you're in Israel, why don't you talk about Arsim? Yeah.
I think like Arsim is like the Israeli equivalent of like gangsters, or people like see them as like the scum of society. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, but like those the I've got love for Arsim too. I had guys certified Arsim in my Tzevit in the army, but they I think like it's guys that like they want to be like tough, they want to be hard, but at the end of the day, like they're still like nice Jewish boys. So but with the classic guy with like the side fade and he's drinking an XL, he's always smoking a cigarette. He's got like a big gold chain on and like he swears like a sailor. That's yours right there.
Yeah. I feel like the Arsim are portrayed a lot on TikTok. I don't know if this has been your experience, but whenever, somebody thinks of an Israeli as as kind of like an Arsim, like somebody that's trying to like hustle you for money too. Like, I don't know, like for example, this shirt that I got at the shuk, right? I was hustling, this guy hustled me for, we were trying to get it. I was literally bargaining with him. He thought I was a stupid American. He's like, I think, come here, I have this chutzah for you, 30 shekel. And I was like, come on, buddy. I saw it for 25 in a different store. Like, I'm not an idiot. Like, these RC think they can play games with Americans, but not with me. Cause like, I know my stuff, Drew.
Yeah,
So,
well, they think
um,
that in Shabbat they think they can play games with the American women. So yeah, that's
yes, yes. It's funny story about another encounter with an RC. I remember when I was there over the summer, two summers ago, it was for a Pride Parade, and I got like this hat, and I don't know what was so special about the hat, but an RC came up to me. He's like, "Hey, bro, do you mind if I borrow your hat for a second? I need it." And I'm like, "Sure, whatever, take it." And then I was like, "Can I have the hat back?" He's like, "Yeah, give me a second." And then just left the club. And I was like, "Okay, you can take my hat." Like, I don't really care. Like, I got it for free. Like, doesn't really matter.
yeah.
But yeah, all right. So let's go back to Camp Ramah for a second, right? So
Mhm.
you were there for how many summers?
Whoa. I think my first summer was in 2011. And I was Nouveau 2018. So call that 8 summers.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about your experience at Camp Ramah. I mean, obviously you built very good relationships with other people, outside of Chicago. And that's where we met, obviously. So why don't you talk about what that experience was like? And maybe if you could give us like a big takeaway or even a small takeaway from your experience with Camp Ramah.
Um, I mean, I'd say that the biggest takeaway out of anything is like the relationships that I formed at camp. Like it's I don't think that like Ramah, Wisconsin is specific in this, but like for me, my friends from camp, like I'm closer with them than I am with like anyone else. My friends from the army, my friends that I've been living with for years. It's like if you had to if you had to like trust my life with some guys, if you had me in like a prisoner's dilemma situation, like I'm throwing myself in with the boys from camp because like I know I can trust them. So
Let's go.
the that's definitely like the biggest takeaway for sure is like especially the guys that like I'm still in touch with. And yeah, other than that, it's a really good place to grow up, I think, is like you get
Okay.
this like space in the middle of nowhere where you can make mistakes and not have, such like tremendous consequences for it. And, whatever. There's a million like embarrassing stories of myself and things that I'm not proud of that I did at camp that I regret, whatever. And I'm just glad that all of that could have happened in like, this like sectioned off space in Wisconsin where like I could grow as a person from that rather than be like, I don't know, like, sent to detention and scolded.
For sure. And I want to go back to your consequences for a second. So I know a big thing at Ramah is bunk pranks. Like you go to either a girl's bunk or a guy's bunk younger in the younger age than you and you do something. And it doesn't have to be super inappropriate, super appropriate, whatever. Why don't you give us a little story or your favorite prank that you played on another Ada that you can remember?
Yeah, I mean, the classic is like our Nouveau prank when the girls came back. That's like more of like a sanctioned event, right? You have like
Okay.
everything set up. It was so it was 2018. It was like right when Fortnite was like really big. I think like season one, season two of Fortnite. And so we like set up the entire like the Giva where we lived. And we set up the entire hill basically to be like a battle royale scenario. These like poor girls that just got back from their camping trip. We're now like equipping them with like water guns and water balloons, and like we've got a circle that's like closing in of guys that are like hitting them with shit. And like we got them playing to like the final two, and like the two that ended up winning were like bush campers. They like hid behind the table the entire game. They came out at the last minute and like got the last pair, and like that was it. And so like that was definitely the most entertaining prank of anything.
And
But
you guys didn't get in any sort of trouble for that? I mean, it sounds amazing, like
what
genius idea.
it's like now more of like a camp sanctioned event. This thing that like the girls go on their camping trips. When they come back, the boys prank them, and then when we left, we got pranked on our way back, and they hit us with like something less cool, I'm sure. But
Got it. And are you anti or pro camp food? I know a lot of people are very anti camp food. I remember when I was at Ramal for that one summer, the food was like pretty disgusting, but I don't remember it being vulgar. What are your thoughts on camp food?
here's the thing. Growing up, I think I was definitely pro camp food. It's like a lot
Hmm.
of like junk food and stuff like that. But then I came back. I missed my first summer on staff because of Corona. Then the
Okay.
next summer I was drafting, and so the third summer I would have been on staff. Uh, I had been like a year in the army, and I finally got a month off. Like lone soldiers, you get a
Mm,
month off for every year of service.
wow.
So I flew back to Chicago, and like the couple weeks before I realized that the last 2 weeks of the summer were the first 2 weeks. So it's called your meyucheret, with my month off. The
Hmm.
first 2 weeks of the meyucheret were the last 2 weeks of the summer. So I got in
Hmm.
contact with Jacob, the director, and he was like, "Yeah, just come up. We'll find you a job. We'll find you something to do. Like, no worries." So I came up, and I had like a pretty cool 2 weeks being on staff, whatever, but I could not stand the food. Like I got used to like eating clean and eating a lot of vegetables and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
good stuff. I think like the army food isn't also not the best, but like at least it's good for you. And all of a sudden I'm
Right.
like being faced with eating like grilled cheese and like pancakes every day for breakfast and like I don't know, just like greasy chicken and beef all the time. Like, hey, it like threw my intestines for a turn for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I just can't imagine like going from Israeli food that's so clean and healthy, like you said, to like I think American food in general just has so much grease and oil and salt and stuff that's bad for you. To camp, which is like that
Mhm.
on steroids.
Yeah.
So, props to you for being able to handle that. I mean, it's disgusting. Like I don't want to even know what preservatives were in those pancakes or whatever, but it's probably not too good.
I also think like if the food at camp, like this thing I realized, the food at camp wasn't like that, like I don't think kids would eat. Like I think so many
Yeah,
American
no,
kids like they're so accustomed to like shit food that like they if you gave them like healthy food at camp, they just wouldn't eat it.
right. No, you're 100% right. So, Drew, how important do you think it is for Jewish American kids to attend a Jewish sleepaway camp? Like, do you think it's an absolute must in order to improve, enhance their Jewish identity, like it did for you, or do you think their Jewish kids can enhance their Jewish identity through simply attending a day school or simply attending a shul or a synagogue? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it depends on who you are. Me, yeah, I was like a public school kid. So that definitely was like something I looked forward to. I don't think I really pinpointed why I liked camp so much until later in life, but like really what it boiled down to was that like when I'm at public school, it's like, okay, being Jewish is one of my like personality traits, right? It's like part of what, makes me who I am, whatever. When I'm at camp, like of course everyone's Jewish, right? It's like saying here like Muvan Me'elav, like it's already understood. So then like the other parts of my personality suddenly become more important, right? It's no longer
Right.
like this big thing like oh, he's Jewish and he does all these other things. It's like he does all these other things, and like that's who I am, and I don't have to like make like the fact that I like eat weird food and don't use my phone on Shabbat and like all these different things like
Right.
a big part of who I am. Where like
Mhm.
a lot around like you know people in other religions, other cultures, like obviously that stands out. There's nothing wrong with that. I just
Mhm.
think like obviously it's way more comfortable for a kid like me
Mhm.
to end up in a Jewish space like that uh, when I feel
For
like
for
deprived of it
sure.
over the school year.
Right. And I can definitely relate to that. Like I went to a Jewish day school my kindergarten through 8th grade and then attended a public school. And I think where I really missed, having like a opportunity, like you said, to like express my Judaism in a controlled, safe space was sleepaway camp. And I think to this day, and I think I tell all of our friends that from Minnesota that not going to Ramah is like something that like heavily regret, just
Really?
because I yeah, oh, 100%. I mean, I basically decided not to go to Ramah because I wanted to stick to playing baseball, and then baseball didn't end up working out because I would have to play on Shabbat. So
Mm.
whatever, I set myself up for failure. But I really think not going to sleepaway camp, like you said, like it really gives you an opportunity to be yourself because you're not quote unquote identifying as the Jewish kid.
Mm.
So to your point, I think I think it's very important that kids go to sleepaway camp. It's again something I regret doing, and I think it not only it enhances their Jewish identity, but because they're surrounded by kids that are like them that are also doing religious things, I think that really is very pivotal in terms of forming a big Jewish identity. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Um, would you say that going to Ramah, doing USY were the biggest influencing factors in making Aliyah? Or do you think it was some sort of external, like you just had some sort of calling one day and made Aliyah?
Look, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Like camp and USY definitely influenced me, but it also like what I have at home, right? My like mom and my grandparents, they at first were like really apprehensive to this idea that like I was going to be making Aliyah, joining the army, whatever. And at the end of the day, like I kind of had to look at them and be like, listen, you raised me to be a Zionist. You raised me to care about Israel, and like this is it, right? Like I care about Israel, and I had a lot of arguments with them about like what it really meant to be a Zionist. They would tell me like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
there are other ways to be a Zionist. You know, you can stay in America, make a lot of money. You know, spend your money and your time helping Israel rather than like spend giving your life to Israel. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw that kind of as like armchair Zionism. Um,
Right.
that like it's like if I'm gonna be a Zionist, I want to be a Zionist like Bar Kokhba and like the Maccabees and whatever, and like I want to go there and do things with my hands rather than like influencing it from afar. So but yeah, part of that's also that part of it comes from camp and from USY, from like every program that you do of like a simulation of making Aliyah as a immigrant after the Holocaust or something like that instills this idea in you that like everything's connected. You're not some like random kid in America who happens to be Jewish and like might have some connection to this place. It's like this is you, right? This is your blood, your family, your ancestors. They all have wanted to come and be part of this like insane experiment that's happening right now. The past 70 something years.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's
Yeah.
really where it came from.
I mean, Drew, I haven't had my morning coffee yet, but like, you already got me fired up. Like, I don't think I need it anymore. I think that's such a good point. And for people listening that are in my position, right, that are an American Jew in college or in high school, like there's only so much you can do. And I think the analogy you used was an armchair, right?
Mhm.
There's only so much you can do sitting in America, you know, posting on social media. I think that's kind of been like our outlet. But I think to Drew's point, like he took freaking initiative to go fight in the army, right? And I think I'm included in this group, but for people like me that are in America, like I feel like there's only so much we can do to really help out Israel. What you did was extremely hard and it's extremely powerful and very motivating. So really props to you for literally taking yourself out of America in a safe home and going on the front lines and fighting for literally your freaking country. Like that really has me fired up. Would you say
I appreciate that.
would you say that like you had an aha moment? I know you were mentioning like you had a couple fights with your mom and your sister. Was there a specific moment in time where you were like, I want to make Aliyah? Because I know when we were, so Drew and I actually did a college tour together. I think it was 4 years ago, in March. And I remember that you were mentioning you're gonna go to Israel and be there for a year or 2 years, whatever it was, and then come back. So was there an aha moment that made you want to stay longer? Or was it just like overall you felt so overwhelmed by what you were doing and the emotion behind it that you felt like you had a need to stay longer?
But I think like the whole idea of like joining the army and whatever is something that I'd thought about for like an excessively long amount of time. Like since I was like a sophomore in high school, I had been like emailing with different. I found some guy online who wrote a blog about being a lone soldier, and so like I was emailing with this guy, like finding out all the details, whatever. So it had been like bouncing around in my head for a really long time. And then I kind of knew that going on Native that like I had kind of a window there to figure out like what it really was I wanted to do and whether or not I wanted to go. I was ready to, go on Native, come back and start going to Maryland, and would have been great. We could have been in CVT together. But uh, other than that, like I it was I got on the team. I was there for I have to say like maybe 3 or 4 weeks before I like called home, and I was basically like I'm staying, which like obviously started like an enormous argument.
Okay.
But like in the day it was I wasn't really asking
Hmm.
anymore, like I looked at my mom. I was like, listen, I'm gonna stay in Israel. It's gonna be on my dime. You don't have to worry about it. Whatever, I'll get a paycheck from the army, but
Hmm.
um like that's the decision I'm making.
For sure.
So I don't know if I'd call it like one aha moment, but really like a series of of like hundreds of them
For sure.
throughout, I'd say from like age 15 to 18.
Right. For sure. And you were on Nativ in the middle of COVID, right? I mean, like,
Mhm.
what was that like? I just had my last episode, I had a guest on, also same kind of situation as you. Um, why don't you talk about being in Israel on a gap year during COVID? I mean, that must have been ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, over the summer of Corona, like money was tight. I needed to start working. So I was working this like crappy moving company job in Chicago, like the
Okay.
summer before I went on my gap year. And then literally like 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, I tested positive for Corona. And this is like way before, I think it's August of 2020. It's like way before any like vaccines have been out or anything
Mm.
like that. There's like really nothing I could do about it. So they also at the time the tests were really bad.
Okay.
So it was like you test, you keep testing positive like weeks after you were no longer contagious.
Hmm.
Because it would like pick up dead cells in there, and that's what would test positive on the machine. So I like basically was doing a test like every 24 hours, and like burning a hole in my pocket, like American healthcare, trying to get a negative test because I needed to get a negative test to get an entry permit into Israel at the time.
Hmm.
So I did like 4 or 5 tests. The one that ended up being like my negative test was I went through some like state funded like testing center in a parking lot, and the lady like handed me the swab through the window. She didn't do it
Wow.
herself. So I was like, okay, I'm like rubbed it on my freaking cheek and like put it in the bottle, and that thing came back negative. And then yeah, I got to Israel, and then they had to put me in isolation in Israel, whatever. But basically, our whole like first semester was just a series of like different lockdowns. Israel took Corona, I think, like way more serious than it was taken in America. So it
Hmm.
was like you couldn't leave a kilometer outside from where you were living. We had like a nice big park right next to where we lived, which was so we had a pretty good kilometer, but. Yeah, I mean, all in all, Corona is like an experience. I think uh, it was a good excuse for me to to convince my parents and like my grandparents that drafting was a good idea because like the like the money shot, like the great line that I had was like, "What? Like you're gonna pay right now $50,000 out of state tuition so that I can sit in a dorm room and learn on Zoom? Like, you'd rather have me do that or go to the army."
That's a great. That is a great sales line. I feel like Drew, after the IDF, I feel like you have a career in sales. What was it like from going from Nativ to the IDF? Like, what was that transition like? How was your training? I guess like what was that experience like?
So like the process that I went through, there's like a number of channels you can do if you want to draft as like a foreigner. But the program that I went through like included this 1 month, I call it like a machina, like a preparation program. Which was like, okay, I think I learned a lot of Hebrew. It was like mostly Hebrew classes and stuff like that. I met some of like my best friends there, which was good. I didn't really take to the program so much, but then I drafted straight to the Ulpan, which is like Hebrew learning course for new immigrants. So you're like technically in the army, you have an army ID, you get a paycheck, you're in uniform, but your job is to sit there for 3 months and learn Hebrew. Pretty much
Mm.
that. And yeah, I'll be honest, like the Hebrew Ulpan, like I couldn't stand the place. It was like a lot of there's just a lot of power dynamics going on there. You got a whole like group of guys that are it's like half Russians and Ukrainians, and then like a bunch of South Americans, and then you'll have like three like North Americans, like American or Canadian guys, and like usually not a lot of English speakers. Um, and then like forget about that you have your commanders are like also 18-year-old Israeli girls that are like trying their hardest to like assert their dominance on you because like they know that's the only way that you'll respect them because they're like half your size. So like they're screaming at you about every little thing and like getting on you, and you're like, who are you? Like you did like a 2 month course to get here. Like I have to listen to you. Like I have to whatever. Maybe I'm being mean, but that that was my experience. And at the same time, you're also if you want to get into any sort of like elite unit, something like that, the whole 3 months is like that's your time pretty much to train. And then like the middle toward the end is when you have what's called a gibush, like a tryout for all of
Mhm.
these like special forces unit stuff like that. For me, I like trained like an absolute maniac for months, especially during the Hebrew course. And then 4 days before the tryouts for special forces, I fell down the stairs and broke my ankle. So they sent me home for a month. I was like on crutches. I missed the tryouts for all the general tryout for all special forces and for the paratroopers. Um, and then my ankle got better. I went back to the last like 3 weeks of the Hebrew course. And I found out at the end of the Hebrew course, the very last day, there was a special tryout for religious paratroopers. I was like, all right, like
Mhm.
I'm a religious guy, you know, let's see what we can do. And like I went there. I had like gotten my cast off a couple of weeks before then, and like was
Mhm.
definitely not at 100%. Like I just like learned to run again pretty much. And then all of a sudden I'm in like a 2 day tryout with you're constantly sprinting on sand and crawling, running with stretchers and uh, like all this crazy stuff. And like whatever, I made it through that. Like hurt like a bitch, I have to say, but in the end, like I finished and I passed, and that's all that really matters. And even though I like messed up my whole ankle, still hurts to this day. But
Talk about adversity. I mean, like you worked literally your entire life during those 3 months to, I mean, get to that training period, that trial. What's the Hebrew term for it?
A gibush.
A gibush.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody remember that's the Hebrew word of the day. So you get to the gibush, or you get to 4 days before the gibush, and then you break your ankle, and then you got to start all over again, which is like literally that is the definition of overcoming adversity. And Drew, I think you did great job overcoming that. So what unit did you end up going into?
So yeah, I passed this tryout, ended up in the religious paratroopers, and kind of a symptom of that is usually if you pass the tryout to go to the paratroopers, then you can go out for like more intense units through that once you like get to base on your first day. There's another tryout, but like the caveat of being a religious paratrooper is that you've declared yourself as a religious soldier. So like that's it. You don't do any more tryouts to like try and move into higher units, whatever. So whatever, I was happy enough to be a paratrooper. There's a lot of pride in it. Um,
Mhm.
Whatever. So that's where I ended up. And you were asking about like training. It's broken up into 4 months and 4 months. You do 4 months of basic training and 4 months of advanced training.
Mhm.
And like the 4 months of basic training, you're basically like the snot in your commander's nose. You're like a chewed up piece of gum on the ground. Like they treat you like absolute garbage. You've got this like goofy, like bald haircut. Um, and you're just like, you're spending all day either like sprinting back and forth. It's like you have 10 seconds, touch that wall, come back, stand in a hit. Or you spend a lot of time shooting, and like just a lot of like physical fitness. And then
Mhm.
advanced training is where you like really get to into like the meat and potatoes of like what you do in the army. So it's like you learn how to fight, how to like um how to be in the field. You learn a specialty. I was a machine gunner, so I spent like hours and hours learning how to be the best machine gunner I guess I could be. And that that was it. I think like it's also a really big bonding experience. You're with the same guys from day one, all the way
Mhm.
through. And so like little by little, you get to know these like goofy dudes. At first, obviously like crazy intimidating, all these Israelis. Like, I remember that first night, in training, like we all get into our beds. The commander like turns off the light and he's like nobody speak. And like you're not supposed to speak a word until I come back tomorrow morning to turn on the light. He like closes the door, walks away 5 seconds. All of a sudden, everyone starts like talking, yelling like across the room, or like boom, boom, ping pong in Hebrew, and I have like no idea what's going on. I don't think my Hebrew was bad, but like I wasn't ready for that. Um, but yeah, and then like every once in a while they'd be like Scott, Scott, and like man, like and they ask me some question. Like that was my contribution to the conversation.
Oh my god, that's great. So do you feel like other than um other than not knowing Hebrew really at the time, do you feel like you were at a major disadvantage relative to the other Israeli soldiers? Or, there's been many lone soldiers before, not many, but there's been a handful of lone soldiers before. So do you think the IDF kind of set you up for success in terms of getting through training, adapting to the culture? Or do you think there was definitely, aside from, the Hebrew struggle, breaking your ankle, do you think there was a lot of challenges and hurdles that you had to overcome?
Well, like I can't speak for other units, but I'd say like for us, the I wouldn't use the word disadvantage just because like the second that you're all there and training together, it is really like this idea of camaraderie, and that's like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's in it together. So it's like whatever I was missing, would get picked up by the other guys and they'd help me out and whatever. But the army does like a remarkable job, I'd say, with like helping lone soldiers feel comfortable as soldiers. You have like um it's called a mashak aliyah for us because you get basically a guy to come in and you do like classes in Hebrew every week or 2 weeks. He brings you out for an hour. There's also, you have a lot of like written tests in the beginning of training, and so he goes over them with us, like super important stuff. And he'll also like make sure that you fully understand, even like translate things like how to throw the grenade properly, how the gun works, different like things that could get people killed usually. you have like an hour long session with the Mashak Aliyah. Um, and yeah, other than that, like you get extra money from the army. You get money to rent an apartment, and um, on top of that, even like a little bit more cash. And then at the end, like the army gives a lot of tools to help lone soldiers. At the end of the day, what it boils down to is whether or not your commanders are willing to like honor those tools. So, like for me, you're supposed to get a day off every month to go deal with like different errands and stuff like that. And like I almost never got those just because like my commanders would just like spit in my face and be like, "You're not different. Like you're not special. You don't get any extra days off." So, unless I had like a really good excuse, like no, I never get off for that. But I never felt uncomfortable, as a
Mhm.
lone soldier. Um,
Well,
and I even remember like the first, it must have been like a week or two into training. And you're doing this game of like, your commander, you're like walking back from eating lunch in like the Hararoka, and like your commander is like 15 seconds, you have to be in 2 lines here and 2 lines there. He's like he's making up these rules on the spot of like, you have to be there in a push-up position when you get back or whatever. And like there was something where we all got punished because like either me or like there was another American with me in my group, like we didn't understand the instructions in Hebrew, and like that's
mhm.
why we got punished. And like one kid like opened his mouth and he was like, oh, it's like because of the American, like whatever. And like my commander made like a really big point of like, these guys are just as Israeli as you are. I don't want to hear like anything like that, like these are your
Holy
brothers.
shit.
So like I'd say things were like very welcoming, but I can only speak for myself. I think like a lot of lone soldiers like get to the army and they have like really crappy experiences with that or with
Mhm.
the culture, and they don't have like that kind of commander that would stand up for them, stuff like that.
Right.
So for everyone it's different, but for me, I'd say overall it was positive.
Wow. And it's great that I mean, literally, again, I know I'm obsessing over this concept, but you literally are leaving everything behind, going to Israel, fighting for your country. And, thankfully, you were able to have a good enough experience where you stayed in the army up until how long were you in the army for up until you got called for reserves?
So about 2 years.
Two
Um,
years.
yeah, my like
Okay.
regular Israelis will do 2 years, 8 months. My mandatory service as a volunteer was a year and a half, and then I signed an extra 6 months on top of that to stay with my guys, and I got released after two.
Got it. So, Drew, I think this is kind of the heavy hitter question that everybody on the podcast wants to know. Where were you on October 7th? And what was your, I guess, initial reaction? What was that like being in Israel on October 7th? What was that like?
So I was actually in Chicago on
Oh, you
October
were in
7th.
Chicago.
Yeah,
Okay.
which makes the story like even crazier because
Okay.
like I wake up, it's Shmini Atzeret in Chicago. I don't think I was even planning on going to shul. I like woke up, went to go to the bathroom, and like as I'm walking by, like my mom, she's like got the TV on in her room. She like calls me in. I'm like, what's going on? And I see on the TV like CNN, big letters on the TV, like Israel at war, whatever. And like I think I said out loud in there, I was like, oh, like, I guess I'm going to war. Which like I'm sure my mom hated, but I stood there for like 15 seconds in shock, and then I was like, okay, like whatever, like I know it's hot, but I guess I gotta turn on my phone. So I like go into my room, I like flip over my phone. As I flip over my phone, I get a call from my commander. Um, and at this point, it's like it must be like 2:30 p.m. in Israel. So like things are still like unfolding, but they already know a lot, whatever. And my commander is like, yeah, there's a war. Like try and get back as quickly as you can. Like we're trying to put you guys back in our unit and stuff like that. So like the next call I made was to one of my best friends, Ezra, who's my roommate here, just to be like, what's going on? And he basically gave me like a 20-second rundown of like, they invaded from Gaza, they murdered a bunch of people, there's people coming in from the sea, from the air, whatever, and like everyone's getting called up for reserves. And he said there's a group chat of reservists trying to get back from America. He said he saw it on Instagram and that he'll send me the link. But like that's all I knew. So like I go into this group chat that he sends the link to, and I realize like nobody has any clue what's going on. Nobody has like any idea. So I was like, you know, I'm not gonna sit around here and wait. I don't have any information on what's going on. So I guess I'm going to shill. So like I throw on a white shirt, I walk to shill. I like walk in and every single table has like prayer for Hayalim on it. Um, and like it's kind of just like a blur. I remember like during Easter, like the old men at Shoal being like, "You're going back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." And they're like, "Give them hell," something like that. Um, so like I remember like walking back, I made myself kind of a plan of how I was gonna do things. And then I go into back to my room, turn on my phone again, and like finally open up my like Sevet group chat from the guys that I was with in the army. And that's when I saw that I got released early from the rest of my Sevet, but they got sent a portion of them to Kfar Aza, which is like one of the communities hardest hit in the OTEF. And that's when I saw that my friend Binyamin, he took 2 bullets to the side and unfortunately died uh, in that battle. And so after that, it was kind of just like, all right, like I got to get on a plane. Like there's no other option now. Like I was supposed to fly out on October 10th, like that Tuesday. So at the beginning, I was thinking like, okay, maybe I'll wait. Maybe I'll just wait until that flight leaves, whatever. But at this point, I was like, no, like I need to go now.
Mhm.
So I like walked downstairs. I told my mom, I was like, buy me a ticket right now to New York. I heard that like now they had started like sending things in the group chat, like, yes, there's emergency flights from New York that are leaving in the next 48 hours, whatever. Like, so I was like, okay, I gotta get to New York. That night I like hugged my family at the airport. I said goodbye and I flew out to New York. I landed like the middle of the night. I met like a bunch of random Israelis at the airport that were like all standing around the El Al desk, like with even though there was no one there, like trying to figure out what was going on. And or realized like, okay, it's 3 in the morning, like we should just come back later. And so these like random guys I just met drove me to my cousins in New Jersey, and I just like
Wow.
knocked on their door and I was like, "Hi, I'm here. Can I crash on your couch?" So uh, they were
Oh
like
my.
surprised to see me, but I slept on their couch for a couple hours, woke up, and then they drove me to JFK in the morning, and I got on a flight to Israel. My cousin bought
Wow.
me 24 bagels on our way there. I walked in with these 2 giant bags of bagels, and like there's like a giant clump of Mili standing around the LL desk at JFK. So I just started handing out bagels to people. She was like, I bet they're not eating. So yeah, I got on the flight. I landed. This would have been like like very early in the morning on October 9th. And then I got to my apartment here. I like the problem was that all my commanders were like in battle. So there was no way for me to like contact them. Whatever. I had like one commander that had stayed back on base, but like he had no idea what I was doing. So I was in contact with like a lot of different people. I was in contact with like my old officers from training, stuff like that. And at this point I haven't slept in 48 hours. I was wide awake on the flight the whole time. So I like get into my apartment here, I pack a bag to go to base, and then I send out all these texts like, I'm here, where do I go? And then I pass out in my bed. The next thing I woke up to was like 3 hours later, the Seva Dome was going off in Herzliya here. And like I walk outside of my room like in a daze, and like boom, a rocket fell like in my neighborhood. And so the whole building shakes, and like glass falls over, shit's breaking in my apartment, and I just see like this mess in front of me, and I'm like, I'm not cleaning up that. Like that's not my problem. I just grab my bag and like walk out the door. So
Wait, guys, everybody just hear what he just said. The Seva Dome's going off, and for those of you that don't know, Seva Dome is the siren that is sounded when there's rockets. All right, Drew over here is going on the literally negative sleep. Wakes up, there's a rocket that hits in his neighborhood. He's like, whatever. I'll go fight in the army now. Like, guys, do you understand? Like, this guy's freaking amazing.
yeah, so whatever. I looked at all that broken glass and I was like, I'm not cleaning up that shit. I grabbed my bag and like just went to base. One of my old officers had my problem in this is that I wasn't a citizen, right? Because I hadn't finished making Aliyah yet. I was supposed to make Aliyah on October 10th. And then I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
in any sort of like reserve unit because my guys were still in active duty and I didn't know how to get back to my guys. So I basically go to this base that's in Netanya that like where like San Khanim paratroopers have all of their equipment. I show up there, I get one of my old
Mm-hmm.
officers to write me like a fake like enlistment notice thing that he like signs for some colonel. And then I go and I sign on a gun, get in uniform, whatever. I stood at the gate for 3 hours trying to get someone to bring me down south, and like nobody would. There was like everyone was either going up north, people were going to different bases, but nobody was going down south. And so I called one of my old commanders. He said, there's a group of reservists from our company that are in that base. Go find them. At this point, it's like late at night on October 9th. So I find them. There's a lot of guys I know there. And I like talk to the officer. He's like, yeah, no worries. Like we're going on Hummers to, the OTEF in a couple hours and you can come with us. And like, this is when it like really becomes the army because like, like hurry up and wait in the army. They say something's going to happen and then it's like canceled and then say something else is going to happen that's canceled. So I ended up being stuck with these guys 3 days. And in that process, we found out that there was not our commander from my original Sevet hadn't given us permission to come back. They made a decision that they weren't taking anyone back. Then they were kind of like breaking up our Sevet because we had another guy die, and a lot of guys were were still recovering from the battle on the 7th and stuff like that. They needed to undergo psychological examinations, stuff like that. So in the end, because of all this, like I didn't end up making it back to my boys, which like really killed me. But then it was just about like finding a reserve unit to be with. And so like I went on WhatsApp and there was this group chat for it's called Rushin the Miluim. Like an officer would post what he wanted in this group chat, and then people would respond. And so I responded to like every single post that needed a machine gunner. And like soon enough, within like 2 weeks, I ended up joining like the special forces unit of Nahal, which is like another infantry unit. And that I was with them for the whole war. The guys are like slightly older than me, like 24, 25. But yeah, like I joined them, really great guys, and we spent the whole war in the north on the border with Lebanon, and then we went down to Gaza for a week and a half and had a little fun there, I guess, and then went back up north for another 2 weeks, and then we were released. Now we're just waiting around.
Wow. Jeez. That is crazy. I mean, from going from Chicago to northern Lebanon or near Lebanon to Gaza, back to the north in a matter of a month. And how long do you think during that, let's say, month, how many hours of sleep on average do you think you got?
Not a lot. Part of the problem is that like when we were there on the border with Lebanon, there's like a thing where when the sun is rising, the cameras don't work nearly as well because they get like glare and stuff like that. So you have to, if you're like anyone who's serving on the border, everyone's awake from usually like 4:30 in the morning until 7. And like then you can finally like go back to sleep. So it was like a weird sleep schedule to the point where it's like the first like month of the war, nobody went home, but then like they started letting guys go home first like 24 hours, then 48 hours, see their families, stuff like that. And the first time I came home, I'm like wide awake at 4:30 in the morning and like my bed and hurts so like it's just annoying. Like I can't go back to sleep. I'm just used to it. So
This is crazy. So I know you talk a lot about this in your blog, Shekel for Your Thoughts. What was that like being in Gaza? I mean, that's literally the like headline of every single newspaper. Talk about your experience with
I'd say like the thing that like struck me the most when I went in was the destruction, to the point where it was even like I was questioning myself, like, do we need to have like this level of destruction? And then it's like the second we got into like battle, it was like, okay, yeah, like, I'm glad that like we're doing what we need to be doing here, because the the thing that's crazy, especially where I was in a place called El Buage, which is like just south of the river that cuts Gaza in
that.
half. And it's like a lot of open spaces and farms and um, like orange and olive groves, stuff like that. And it's like every 100 meters you have another tunnel entrance. It's like every single olive grove, every farm. There was this big water like sewage processing plant. That thing was like riddled with mines, and like different tunnel entrances. So like they say that this network is extensive. I would wager that like you pick any building in Gaza within a 200-meter radius, you have an entrance to a tunnel. And like usually an entrance to a tunnel either means that that's a landmine, or that's like a squad of Hamas. So it's just like it's like the worst battlefield you can possibly imagine. It's like the messiest stuff. So uh I'd say like it was like the going from being like, wow, like does it really need to be like this destroyed here? Like, do we really need to bomb this much here? To like, oh, like, yeah, we do. Like, there's no other way to do it. It's like it's unavoidable.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I think the the thing that's missing the most in like media is the why. I don't think, I mean, sure, there's plenty of people that are just lying, but like the major news outlets that aren't like Al Jazeera, that are like, you know, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, that are reporting on the conflict, like they're missing the why. They're missing the reason why there's so much destruction. You know, why are there so many civilian casualties? Is because like this enemy that we're fighting against, they really don't care. The first day we were there, we captured like this farm that had like a rocket launch site in the middle of the farm, like right next to the cows and the chickens is like, you know, mortar launchers and stuff like that. So and like that was everywhere. It's neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, like everything is just like completely um as like used to their advantage as much as possible, like no matter how like disgusting it is to put like vulnerable people in the line of fire. So like I think one of the things that like an important moment for us, like for my team when we were there, is that like we're in this house. We spend like a decent amount of time there, probably like 4 or 5 hours, while there like we had to secure the whole area. There was a tunnel, then an excavator came in and dug up the tunnel. And we're sitting in this house, and like, you know, you start like looking through this stuff there. I already find this photo album, like looking through the photo album of this like family, and we're like, it's like amidst that too, like it's sad to see like this family, and you like feel bad for like a second, and then you're like, yeah, and they have in their backyard right now, we're watching them dig up uh Hamas tunnel entrance, right? So that like either the whoever, you know, is in charge of this house was okay with that happening, or you didn't have a choice, and you know, Hamas came and said, okay, we're putting a tunnel in your backyard and it doesn't matter. And when we entered that house, they put a they put a big like gas tank at the entrance, waiting for some soldier to shoot it by accident and have it blow up in his face. So it's like, you know, you have to, that's like the horrible game that we have to play in Gaza, between like, obviously, like you look at the photos of like these kids and this family, and you're like how can, you know, like it's so sad that they had to leave their home right now, and like right now that we're digging up their backyard. But at the same time, it's like, what else am I like possibly supposed to do in this scenario, right? Just like let them sit there. We're 500 meters from the border. You can turn to your left and see the border with Israel, and then from there see, you know, Kibbutzim, Be'eri was right there, all those places. And it's like we're supposed to let those people die so that this family doesn't have to move. Like, you know, it's like a terrible, terrible game you have to play. I think that was really my takeaway. Um, and yeah, the other thing about like you saying about the media and like how they're talking about it is, like I think there's a lot of irresponsibility in the media when it comes to talking about like uh how the IDF is dealing with civilians and civilian casualties and whatnot. From my experience, like we're going above and beyond what would be expected of like a normal army in terms of preventing civilian casualties. Like I wrote it more articulately in my blog post, but we like we spent a lot of time and effort making sure that, you know, the only people that we were, you know, killing or whatever were terrorists, that people that were armed, that, you know, that were coming out of tunnels, stuff like that. And like part of that was evacuating the whole city that we captured before we came in. And it was sending out drones every time there was some sort of sighting of a person to make sure exactly what you were fighting against. You know, making sure that if you're you know, fighting in this area, that it's just your strip that you're capturing, that you're not shooting into other houses on the side because you don't know what's in there. It's like all these things that like objectively endanger ourselves, but like it's worth it because you're saving people's lives, right? These people that didn't ask to be caught up in this war. And like there are people more extreme than myself that would say that like that it's not worth it, that like we shouldn't be sacrificing soldiers' lives for Palestinian civilians, but like that's not my opinion. I think that's not the opinion of most Israelis. It's like, you know, we have to stand up for our values.
Everything he's saying, I mean, if you have a question, if you're calling into question about the IDF's moral obligations to protect Palestinian civilians, I think you're asking the wrong question. You should be questioning Hamas's moral obligation to protect innocent Palestinian civilians. I mean, let's be real here. Hamas, they're a terrorist group, right? There's no way around it. But they do absolutely, excuse my French, jack shit to protect Palestinian civilians, okay? And Drew over here is telling us how not only has he gone to extreme measures to protect, you know, Palestinian civilians, they've used Israel, right? The startup nation with all the technology, they use their drones to make sure that the person that they're about to, you know, overtake is indeed a terrorist and somebody that's trying to cause harm and trying to disrupt Palestinian, like the lives of Palestinians. So, but this issue is so complex to the point where Drew, an American who has values, who doesn't want to kill innocent Palestinian civilians, is doing his best to eliminate Hamas terrorists without killing innocent Palestinian civilians. And that is something that is so extremely difficult. As Drew mentioned, right? There are tunnels everywhere in Gaza. I think I saw a report that said the London Tube is about half the size of all of the length of Hamas tunnels in Gaza. Every 200 meters, there's probably Hamas tunnel. Okay, it, it's ridiculous how many people are making these excruciating takes that Israel is trying to kill innocent Palestinian civilians. And if you're a listener and you're confused about this issue, that's totally okay. But again, you're getting a first-hand witness, somebody that was actually in Gaza, not somebody that was reporting from Al Jazeera in, I don't know, where's the place that all the Gaza
Qatar.
Qatar, yeah. You're getting a first-hand witness from somebody that's actually been there. So I really want everybody to listen to, and again, I've said this in, I think, my previous 2 episodes, like really when you're doing your research on this issue, this is such a complex issue that you can't even, you know, look at one source and say, oh, this is the right way. And I think Drew himself, like he said, there are many Israelis that he doesn't agree with, right? And he even challenges himself to making sure that the right thing is done. I mean, when we first started talking about this issue, he literally said verbatim, I walked into Gaza and I questioned, did we really need to destroy this many buildings? Okay. Drew himself is even challenging his own views. And I think that's so important to understanding this issue, right? So Drew, again, you have this blog.
Yeah, Shekel for your thoughts. It's with the number 4 on Instagram. Yeah, it's a written blog, and then now, like, since the war, with the help of my sister, who's like the social media manager, we've opened up Instagram, and that, I guess, the first really big post that we put off was these slides of like what I saw in Gaza, and that like blew up relatively, or like getting close to like 1,000 likes on that, which I'm really happy about. And so, yeah, we're just, I think, in the next couple weeks, especially now that I'm, released from reserves for the time being, just trying to pump out as many blogs as I can. And it's just about like sharing interesting perspectives. We're gonna post one in the next coming. We just posted the one about like what are the real consequences of ceasefire, and everybody wants a ceasefire. It seems so obvious of like this is like, if you stop ceasefire, you stop fighting, then it'll bring peace. But what are the long-term consequences of that? And then soon we're gonna be talking a little bit more about like the colonial neo-colonial ways that Iran controls the Middle East. Right, they have all their proxy groups, and the way that they, a lot of the time, for their own selfish interests, will push war onto random countries in the Middle East that are willing to further their agenda. And in the end, it's the civilians, just like in Gaza and Yemen and Syria, that it's these civilians that end up taking the hit from, Iran's genocidal regime. So that's the next blog we're gonna come out with, and yeah, it's just about getting the truth out there. There's so much misinformation. I think, like, to be someone who's trying to write even-handedly, and really with the facts, we have a giant list of references at the end of every post, just in case anyone's checking. And so, just about, yeah, getting the truth out there, fighting the darkness with some light.
That's phenomenal. So it's at Shekel, the number 4, your thoughts on Instagram. And then
Mhm.
your website is shekelforyourthoughts.com, correct?
Yeah,
Okay. So no number 4 on the website.
yeah.
Drew, this was a amazing conversation. And I really appreciate you coming on here, talking about you moving from America to fighting in the IDF, talking about what you saw in Gaza. Please make sure to follow at Shekel for Your Thoughts on Instagram. Go check out his blog, shekelforyourthoughts.com. We really want to thank Drew. If you like this episode, again, we're trying to get found. Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this, please give me a review. I think a lot of people are going to want to listen to this episode with Drew talking about what he saw in Gaza. So please do me a favor. I've done you a favor by giving you this content. Please give me a review. Give me some 5 stars. And I want to thank all you listeners. Till next time, keep schmoozing.